On today's show, the Dallas Mavericks get a win against the Utah Jazz. How did they take care of business? And what has Daniel Gafford brought to the starting lineup to get the Mavericks to a 9-1 record since he started? We'll talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
The Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day where we let it ride. On the audio podcast. on the video, this is kind of awkward. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. With the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform, Spotify, Apple. Leave a 5-star review on that and comment anything below on YouTube. Let me know, what's a better nickname for the Mavericks than Lob City? Because we can't just do Lob City Mavs again, right? Because they already did it for the Clippers. So how do you do, is it Lob City Mavs, Dallas Dunkers, something that's come up with a better name than that? Let me know in the comment section. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use that code LockedOnNBA, all lowercase, for our first deposit match up to $100. The Dallas Mavericks get a win against the Utah Jazz, and going into this game, the Jazz needed to take care of business, so we'll talk about how they did take care of business. We'll talk about, is Jaden Hardy making a case for himself to get some more minutes? Jason Kidd is preaching patience and hopes the public will be patient. That was a quote from Jason Kidd. So maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. The Mavs move up to 6th in the West standings. We'll talk about how important that is with some really key games coming for the Mavericks a little later on. And we'll talk about Daniel Gafford. What has he brought to the starting lineup? But I got to start here. The Mavs have turned into the Lob City Clippers. Just an insane difference between what we've seen from the Mavericks and this game. Kind of encapsulated, a lot of the Mavs games recently have kind of encapsulated what the Mavs have turned into. They've turned into this team that is big, that can defend pretty well, that defends the paint, sometimes better than they did in this game tonight. But they're a team that can rebound. They're a team that has dunkers and athletes all over the place. So we are not used to a team like the Dallas Mavericks with athletes like they have on this team. The Mavs in this game, 18 dunks total. In this game. That's the most by any team in over 20 years. That's from StatMuse. 18 dunks for the Mavericks tonight. They made 43 shots. So the Mavericks made almost half of their shots. I guess that's closer to like a third of their shots were dunks that they made. And insane. And when the Mavs go 10 of 32 from 3, so they shoot 31%. And again, we're seeing this again and again with this new look Mavericks team. We've seen them where if they don't hit, in the past, if the Mavs didn't take 43s and if they didn't make 40% of them, 37% of them, a decent percentage of their threes, they were toast. They were done. You just looked around and you said, well, they just couldn't get the ball in. They just couldn't hit the threes. And so you might as well just pack it up and go somewhere else. We might as well go to Pluckers or whatever with the free wings. And instead, this new Mavs team, they have different ways of winning. Now, is the three-point shooting still concerning? Yes. We talked about that yesterday with Dana. We talked about that the other day with Isaac as well on the show. So go check out those episodes if you want to hear more about some of the Mavs issues. You don't want to just hear glowing great things about the Mavericks. If you do want to hear glowing great things about the Mavericks, keep listening to this podcast because that's what I'm going to do today. Mavs get a win. And so this Mavs team, they have different ways of winning games now. And this one, you get 60 points in the paint. You also allowed 60 points in the paint, but you scored 60 points in the paint, so you matched the Jazz in this one. They didn't shoot the three-ball well. The Jazz did not shoot the three-ball well either. We'll talk about that in a second. But the Mavs are able to create some turnovers, get to the other side, and they also created some dunks in the half court. And we haven't seen that a lot from a Mavericks team either. And so this new-look Mavericks team finding a way to win games without hitting threes and not having Kyrie Irving go off for a big number either. Luka had 34, but Kyrie Irving only 16 points. In the past, the Mavericks would have to have both. In the very recent past, weeks ago, the Mavericks would have to have Luka and Kyrie both go off for 30-something for the Mavs to win a game. This is very recently that the Mavericks have changed and become this team now that can rely on some other guys, that can set up other guys in different ways, that Daniel Gafford scores his Mavericks career high, 24 points, that Derrick Jones Jr. can have 12 points, and the Mavs don't have to score 130 points to win games. How many times did we hear Jason Kidd, and have we heard Jason Kidd after games go, our offense is our best defense, and we're just going to score 130, and teams are going to score 130 on us, so we've just got to score more than that. It's like it felt like he was just letting that be what it was. And just like, all right, I'm resigned to the fact that this team will give up 130 points, but we'll score 135. He just was accepting and outright like saying this is what we are as a team. And now they're different. They only allowed the Jazz to score 97 points. Now the Jazz are not very good. They've had the worst record since the All-Star break. They're not a very good team overall. Larry Markkinen did play in this game, but no Jordan Clarkson. No John Collins in this game either, even though we thought he was going to play, but he didn't end up playing. This is not a very good Jazz team. They shot 4 of 30 from 3. There have only been 4 teams now in the entire season. Think about all the games that have been played this entire season. 4 teams this season that have taken 30 or more threes and have missed 4 or have only made 4 or less of them. So the Jazz had one of the 4 worst shooting three-point games of the season for any team this season. Insane. So a really bad shooting night for them. You got to give the Mavs some credit for that, but if it's that bad, you just got to think, all right, it's just a really bad shooting night for the Jazz. If it was the Mavericks on the other end of it, you'd go, well, some of those threes would go down. But they don't have a ton of great shooters. I mean, you start Kessler, you start Taylor Hendricks, you start Chris Dunn. Keontae George was 1 of 6 in this game. You think Larry Markkinen normally would hit more than 1 of 9, but he didn't. And then coming off the bench, you just didn't have a ton of – Colin Sexton was 0 of 3. You just didn't have a lot of go-to. The Jazz are just running out of options and running out of guys, and honestly – running out of reasons to win games. If you saw me on WFAA, this game was on WFAA, and I went on WFAA midday today, and Tishara asked me, so give me the 3 things what are the Mavs playing for, basically? Like what's going to motivate the Mavs to win tonight? And I was like, woof. I don't know. I don't think I have an answer for you because they're kind of running out of options. They're running out of reasons to win games. They're one of those teams. They're just sliding at the end of a season, and that's what it is. But the Mavs had to come in and take care of business themselves, and they did. They got 18 dunks, a ton of dunks for the Mavericks, and now this Mavericks team has they have a different identity now. They can win games in different ways. The Mavericks last season, 304 dunks total for 82 games. This season, not even 82 games, 386 dunks so far this season. 82 more dunks than last season. And we've still got, 14 games to go, 13 games to go? It's awesome to see this Mavericks team kind of change and be there for each other. How many times did we see incredible ball movement in this game where you saw 3-4 passes? I mean, we're not seeing the old Mavericks team of it's just iso ball or nothing. Now, the Mavs can still do that. And that's what helps this team with the different ways they can win games, their different identity. It's not just, all right, it's only iso ball, kick out, spray threes, all that. They also can do all right, we're going to make a bunch of passes, we're going to get stops on defense and go the other end, and we're going to make 18 dunks in a game, the most by any team in 20 years. Absolutely insane for the Mavericks. And it kind of starts with their new defensive identity, and I think it does start with the P.J. Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., Daniel Gafford front court. The three-point problems and the good defensive problems, good problems, have come from that front line. The three-point shooting from those guys has not been great. Derrick Jones Jr. didn't even take 1 tonight. Gafford's not going to take any. P.J. Washington went 0-4 again. His corner threes continue to just look really rough. But the Mavs in that front line have now found a group that can really defend and can answer a lot of questions that the Mavericks had in the past. They've got a rim protector. They've got a guy in the middle that can get rebounds and that can finish in Daniel Gafford. We'll talk about him a little later. They've got a guy in Derrick Jones Jr. that can guard the point of attack. Been looking for that guy. Who is it? It's Derrick Jones Jr. He's going to be the guy. Even I think when Josh Green comes back from injury, Derrick Jones Jr. is going to continue to start, I think. And they got P.J. Washington, who some of you have dubbed P-Jail Washington because he puts guys in jail. And Larry Markkinen in this game, 6 of 20 from the field, 1 of 9 from 3. It wasn't all P.J. Washington. Maxi Kleber also helped on Larry Markkinen. The Mavs obviously had a bunch of switches where Larry Markkinen was guarded by other players. But P.J. Washington, I think, did a good job on Larry Markkinen, making his life really tough. And he looked really frustrated by the end of the game. There's a lot of things to be frustrated about if you're a player on the Jazz. But I think P.J. Washington really made his life really difficult. And that's something that we know P.J. Washington can do because he's guarded a bunch of different players. And so you have that front line. You have Gafford. You have P.J. Washington. You have Derrick Jones Jr. And the backcourt of Luka and Kyrie just doing whatever the hell they can to get the offense to get enough points to win. And that's a recipe, I think, for a lot of wins for the Mavericks. And so it's a good lineup that Jason Kidd has found. And so now we take a look at what this team can do going forward. But coming up, let's talk about Daniel Gafford a little bit more. What's he bringing to that front line? What's he bringing to the starting lineup? Because the Mavs are 9-1 since Gafford has started. So let's talk about that and more coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. You can go to PrizePicks right now, and there's tons of stuff for the NBA. You can pick. All you have to do is pick 2 to 6 players, and more or less on their stat projections. You're not picking, fantasy. You can pick fantasy points. You can do all kinds of different stuff, but you're not just playing against these guys that have these algorithms that know exactly what they're doing. You've heard all the different things like, oh, I got this thing, and these guys do it professionally. You're just playing against stat projections, so it's fun. You're doing it while you're watching something else, while you're watching a game, while you're watching multiple games at once for the tournament, all that kind of stuff. And you can check out Demon Time. You can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with PrizePicks. So go check it out. Players and stats that you're selecting, highlight your winnings from PrizePicks, and you can see how it's going to flow in for you. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use that code LockedOnNBA. Again, it's all lowercase, LockedOnNBA. For a first deposit match up to $100, put $100 in. They will match it $100. So you get basically $100 free dollars. Anybody can use $100 free dollars. And then if you win, you get the money from that too. How fun is that? Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Again, use that code LockedOnNBA. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. Appreciate each and every one of you for watching the show, for listening, for checking in. And go check out these subtexts if you want to support the show even further. Help me continue to do cool things and to send you more content. I'll send text straight to your phone, Mavs updates, Mavs notes during the games, extra Mavs content. I'll do a Mavs watch back where I'll watch a quarter and I'll point out stuff, and we'll have fun doing that. Subscribe to the subtext. Click the link in the description. Text the number. It's on the screen right there. There it is, right there. 214-643-8637. All right, Isaac, let's get into Daniel Gafford. I want to talk about him because he had an incredible game in this one. 24 points, his Mavs career high. He also had 7 rebounds, and he had 5 assists, his most as a Maverick as well. The Mavs are 9-1 when Daniel Gafford starts. And I think the thing that he's really brought is he is such a great lob threat. Oh, my gosh. He can catch anything. He can put down anything, and he can finish really strong in traffic. Love Derek Lively. Derek Lively's brought a lot of things to this Mavericks team. He was awesome to start the year. He's played decently well. I don't think he had a great game in this one, but he obviously impacted the game in just his 15 minutes. But Daniel Gafford can finish around anybody. You saw the play last game against the Spurs where Victor Wembanyama is behind him, and usually that's a recipe for Wembanyama is just going to block your shot. But Daniel Gafford, with how strong he is, just went up real strong with the ball in his hands, pushed Wembanyama from behind, or Wembanyama was behind him and pushed him backwards and got the dunk because he was so strong that Wembanyama couldn't get it out of his hands. That is finishing strong for Daniel Gafford. He's big, and him just fighting for rebounds. Lively too, but Gafford fighting for rebounds allows the Mavericks to get rebounds. 11 offensive rebounds. Gafford got 3 of them. And other ones were tipped out to P.J. Washington, tipped out to Luka, Kyrie, Maxey, Jaden Hardy, all got offensive rebounds in this game, and we're not used to the Mavs guards getting offensive rebounds. We're not used to the Mavs getting offensive rebounds. But him fighting for boards and keeping bigs occupied in the paint is just such a big plus for the Mavericks, something that we haven't seen from this team in a long time. And it's great to see Daniel Gafford in the paint, getting that done, finishing, and he's getting there defensively. Sometimes his rotations are not exactly where he's supposed to be. They're still trying to figure that out. It's still ironing out. It's still about figuring out how to be in the right place at the right time, and you have to process everything that's happening on the floor so quickly that sometimes guys are in the wrong spot and things like that. But he brings a big presence, and he is a deterrent, and he alters shots, and he's there, and he's big in the paint, plays 27 minutes, and then Derek Lively played 15. The Mavs did go small a little bit because Gafford, in the middle of the second quarter, it seemed like he just got a real bad bruise on his thigh and was down for a while, went to the locker room, but came back on the bench after that and then started the second half. And so the Mavs only kind of went small, I think, because of Gafford's injury there for a second. But Daniel Gafford has brought a lot to this starting lineup. Mavs are 9-1. Some of it is because of coincidence, because of where what the schedule has been, but he's brought a ton to that starting lineup. And now you have Lively coming off the bench, where I think he's also better suited to take advantage of his chemistry with Kyrie, and I think they have great chemistry. I think he can take advantage of teams play small a lot, and so Lively can take advantage of a smaller center to be able to get rebounds over them, to be able to dunk over those guys. And so I think that's been a big positive for the Mavericks as well, that he has moved to that backup and that he's the backup center and Dwight Powell can come in as a victory cigar. How great is that? That's what Dwight Powell should have been for a couple of years now, I think, is that he should be a fan favorite where we go, yes, Dwight Powell, he's the guy that stuck with us. He's been with us through so many iterations of this team. He's played with Dirk. He's played with Justin Anderson. He's played with Dennis Smith Jr. He's played with Luka. He's played with Dorian Finney-Smith. Like, he spans so many different eras of the Mavericks in the last couple of years. And it's great to see the Mavericks get to throw him out there as a victory cigar instead of as the starting center. But the Mavs have this great rotation of centers now that Daniel Gafford is playing, getting the minutes that he is. 10 of 11 from the field. Continues to just be hyper efficient in there. He knows what he is. He knows exactly what he is, and so does Lively. But Gafford knows exactly what he is strong, big in the paint, and all that. It's exactly what the Mavericks could have hoped that he would be when the Mavs traded for him. And I've seen this a couple places. People say, oh, Daniel Gafford, worth the first-round pick. The Mavs traded a pick swap for him. They traded the pick swap to the Thunder, and the Thunder's pick went to the Wizards. So, also, the Mavs didn't give up a first-round pick. They gave up a pick swap for that. And so, totally worth it. Completely worth it to give up a pick swap for Daniel Gafford. You do that 9 times out of 10. Absolutely. Other things in this game, I think that Luka Doncic, 34 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, and just an absolutely beautiful alley-oop pass to Kyrie Irving. An amazing pass to Kyrie Irving in transition. Kyrie Irving now has 4 dunks on the season. That's his career high in dunks. He's had 4 dunks in 2 other seasons. I think it was 2013 and 2015 was the last time he did it. Kyrie Irving, the most dunks he's had since 2015. That's almost a decade. That's almost a decade since Kyrie has had 4 dunks in a season. And he did it during Ramadan again tonight. Just, I don't know. We've seen it. The Mavericks feel like they're back in a groove. It feels like they're back in. It feels like they're back in the pocket. It feels like their chemistry is back there. When Kyrie Irving hit that dunk in transition, got the alley-oop from Luka. If you've seen that play, go watch that clip again and watch the Mavs bench. Watch them all get up. Omax, Gafford, Lawson, Markieff Morris, Dwight, everybody. Watch them all get up and just cheer on Kyrie Irving. There's something about when Kyrie Irving does something awesome, gets this whole team excited, gets them all pumped up, and gets me pumped up too. But there's something about Kyrie. Luka does great things too. Luka does awesome things too, not taking anything away from him. But there's something about when Kyrie does something that everybody just gets up because he's 6'2". He's the same size as like a lot of normal people like myself walking around the arena. And when he did something awesome, he had a couple of dribble moves and a couple of finishes tonight. They were just absolutely awesome. He only scored 16 points, didn't shoot the ball particularly well, had a couple of wide open or just pull-up jumpers that he missed in this game. But when he does something awesome, the Mavs seem to rally around it and come together and get really hyped for it. And we've been looking for where's the Mavs chemistry? Where is that chemistry that we saw in the bubble from 2 years ago when they went to the Western Conference Finals? They used to be this team that you could bet on their chemistry and that their chemistry would take them a little bit farther than the sum of their parts. And Jalen Brunson leaves, Dorian Finney-Smith leaves, Boban leaves, Theo Pinson leaves, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, where are our culture guys? Where are the guys that are going to start rallying these guys together? And in a different way than those 4 other guys I just mentioned, Kyrie has kind of, I feel like, rallied this team a little bit, and just him doing cool things, pushing the Mavericks forward, him being unselfish, him pushing the team ahead of himself. I think that he has helped push that culture a little bit further, and I think that that's exactly what the Mavericks needed next to Luka. Luka is going to give the team their best chance to win a game any single time, and Kyrie is going to help push the rest of the team forward and to build that culture, and I think that they have really complemented each other well in doing that. And so I wanted to point that out because the alley-oop was incredible, but I think it was a good synergy play to see the bench get all excited, to see Daniel Gafford befuddled afterwards and just start looking around. It was an amazing play. Coming up, I want to talk about Jaden Hardy. I think he's making a case for some more minutes. Jason Kidd tries to preach patience about it, and then we'll talk about where the Mavs are in the standings, talk about all that and more coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Go check out eBay Motors to see what kind of parts you can get for your car. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home a winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And eBay Motors has the eBay Guaranteed Fit, which means that your part is guaranteed to fit or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. Go to ebaymotors.com to keep your ride or die alive. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to customers. All right, Isaac, let's talk about Jaden Hardy. He plays 17 minutes. He hits 2 threes in this game. He has 5 assists as well. And he plays more than Tim Hardaway, but he did play some garbage time. There's a little bit of a, should they play Jaden, should they play Tim? And, like, I'm at a point right now where I don't know what Tim brings that Jaden Hardy couldn't give you. And I think Hardy brings things that Tim definitely can't give you. The 5 assists. Tim has had some moments where he's had some good plays and some good passing plays. But Jaden Hardy can give you a pick and roll lob to Daniel Gafford. Awesome play. He can give you a, hit a cutter and drive and kicked out to somebody for a 3. Tim Hardaway's not doing that. And I think the Mavericks need a little bit of that every once in a while, especially now that we're looking at a new look offense where they're not as reliant on the 3. And they can get, they do need a little bit more ball movement. And Exum has brought some of that too. He plays 15 minutes tonight, gets a couple of assists, but only took 1 shot. They need somebody else besides Luca and Kyrie to be able to do that, especially in the rest of the regular season. I would love to see Jaden Hardy play that 4th guard off the bench minutes. Instead of Tim, Jaden Hardy. And Kid tonight, was asked about Jaden Hardy. He was asked about what he was asked about, can Jaden Hardy play more minutes and things like that. And he said, I would like the public to have patience, that there are a couple of guys ahead of him in the lineup. He said, Hardy, I thought I played incredible for us off the bench. And yes, he should get more minutes, but there's only 48. There's a couple of guys in front. I'd like the public to be patient. His teammates all know he can play. The public can be patient. I just think it's time. Tim has not played well at all. We can all see it. All of us see it. And maybe he thinks that they just have to have Tim because they're going to need a quarter in the playoffs for Tim to hit 5 threes or 4 threes. Honestly, I would take 3 threes right now at this point where Tim's playing. But it's hard for me to look at the play of Tim Hardaway Jr. and the flashes that Jaden Hardy shows and say, you know what? Just by what they need right now, just by how they're playing right now, what have you done for me lately? Tim should be playing over Jaden Hardy. I don't think you can make that case. And I think Jaden Hardy's making a case that he should be playing over him. And so, okay, Kid is preaching patience, and Kid always waits a little bit longer to make some of these moves than I think a lot of us want. Of course, we always want things to happen right now, and the microwave thing. But I don't think that there's a big case to be made besides, all right, we can't have Tim lose complete confidence going into a playoff run, because what if Hardy's – honestly, you know what? I take that back. I don't see the reason, because if you're going to say, well, Tim – Hardy's just going to be lost on defense. How about Tim? Tim is lost on defense too. We see it all the time. I don't think that there's anything that Tim Hardaway is going to bring besides maybe audacity. Tim has audacity as a shooter, and sometimes you need that. Tim will take a 3 that you didn't know that he could take. You didn't know was going to be available to him. And so maybe that's the only thing I can think of at this point right now. But Jaden Hardy can bring pick and roll plays. He can bring that shooting. He can bring a mid-range shot. He'll take that every once in a while. And we've seen him hit it over the last couple of games where he'll just create a shot on his own. And sometimes you need Luka and Kyrie to take a play off, and Kyrie can just do that. When Luka or Kyrie are on the court and Hardy's on the court, good things happen. And so I think right now he's running out of excuses and running out of reasons to not play Hardy over Tim Hardaway Jr. He just is. Hardy's playing some good basketball. He's adding some good things to this team. And his detractors are the same detractors that Tim has. So, I don't know. I'm running out. Tim goes 0-4 tonight, misses 3 threes. Again, he takes tough threes, but we're running out of excuses here for him. The Mavs move up to 6th, and let's hope they never move back again, because 6 is a good spot to be in. You're waiting for one of those teams to falter, the Oklahoma City, the Minnesota Timberwolves, or the Nuggets. Right now, the Mavs would play the Timberwolves in the first round, and they would completely miss the play-in. That's something the Mavericks absolutely need to do. They need to miss the play-in, because in the play-in, you're playing the Kings or the Suns in the first game, and then if you lose, you're playing Steph Curry or LeBron in the second game. Whew. That's a tough slate of 2 games to try and go make the playoffs. So hopefully they stay in 6 here. They've got another game against the Jazz. They've got 3 days off now. That's absolutely huge for the Mavericks to have 3 days off. So to get guys some rest, to get guys healthy. Buys Josh Green 3 more days in his injury. He's going to be out weeks, but still it buys him some more time. And then they play 2 games against Sacramento. And those games are huge because the Mavericks are down 0-2 to Sacramento this season. But if they beat Sacramento, that's 2 losses for Sacramento, who lost to the Wizards tonight, by the way. Thank you, Washington. Thank you, Wizards. Thank you for Daniel Gafford. And thank you for beating the Sacramento Kings tonight. The Mavericks fans and the community, thank you very much. Kings, 40-29. The Mavericks are 41-29. So if the Mavs hand them 2 losses, that would be massive. That would be absolutely massive in the standings because it's hard to move up and down right now. The Mavs went on a 7-game win streak and barely moved at all. They lose 4 games in a row and then they move down 1. It's like, man. Or they moved down 2, didn't they? So, Kings' schedule is also really tough the rest of the way. We kind of talked about it yesterday with Dana, but it's a really tough schedule for the Kings. The Suns also have a really tough schedule. I'm recording right now as the Suns are playing the Hawks. And so the Suns are winning the game, but by the time you're listening to this, you'll know what the finish is of that game. But the Suns have kind of fallen off a little bit. I was listening to JJ Redick's podcast with Tim Legler from the weekend where they talk about the Mavs-Nuggets game. And Tim Legler said a lot of really great things about the Mavs, by the way. Tim Legler's back. The Mavs didn't embarrass themselves in front of Tim Legler. Let's go. Remember Tim Legler said amazing great things on Adam Mares' podcast about the Mavs, and he was like buying the Mavericks and buying after the trades and all that, and then the Mavs go out and they lose 5 of 6. And we were like, no, don't embarrass us in front of Tim Legler, Mavs. But he's back. He's back on. I don't think he ever left, but he's back on the Mavs train and excited about what he saw in that Denver game. But in that podcast, wow, that was a tangent. In that podcast, he talked about the Suns, and he's like, man, the Suns are just completely fallen off, and they have lost their identity. Defensively, they've really fallen off. He really doesn't know what to expect from them on any given night. They lost a game to the Bucks without Giannis. That's a tough one to lose. And they lost some clutch games here or there. And so the Suns are kind of falling a little bit. The Kings, the Mavs have 2 games ahead of themselves where they play them, and the Mavs' destiny is in their hands with the rest of this schedule. We're doing standings watch every single day. And then there's the Pelicans. Pelicans are in 5th. They're a game and a half ahead of the Mavs. And it looks like Brandon Ingram just went down with a really big injury. Tough break for the New Orleans Pelicans. Tough break for my guy Jake Madison over at Locked On Pelicans. But the Pelicans are not unreachable right now with where they are in the standings. A game and a half. It's only a game and a half difference between the Mavs and the Pelicans. The Pelicans are 42-27. The Mavs are 41-29. And then you want to let me just hide over here for a little bit. And then I just listened to Locked On Clippers today with Darian Vaziri, and he's like, where did it all go wrong with this Clippers team? Who are they? Where's this Clippers team that I've come to know and love? The Clippers are not catchable either. 3 games between the Mavs and the Clippers right now for 4th. The Mavs could move to 4th if they take care of business with what's in front of them. And the Mavs schedule is not that tough. We could see by the end of the 2 Sacramento games, the Mavs win both of those. We could see them closer to 4th and close that gap. Now, 3 games is a lot. I'm not expecting them to do that. But all this to say, the teams around the Mavericks are kind of faltering right now. Pelicans have an injury. Clippers aren't playing well. Kings lost Kevin Huerter too. Suns haven't been playing well. And the Mavs have a pretty light schedule besides those 2 Kings games in front of them. And if you ask Slightly Biased, he would say the Kings games are not necessarily that tough either. But the Mavs' destiny, all this to say, the Mavs are in 6th right now, and their destiny is in their hands. 5th is absolutely possible, and 4th is even possible for the Mavericks. And if you want to talk about the Mavs getting to 4th in the West, then all of a sudden, you better be going to FanDuel and putting some money down on Luka for MVP, because if the Mavs make it to 4th, then all of a sudden you can't make the, oh, well, the Mavs are in 8th place. How could you give Luka the MVP? So there you go. That's a standings watch for today. We'll continue to do it, and go subscribe to the Subtext if you want to get more content and more Mavs stuff. I may do an over the weekend like bonus mailbag on just Subtext for just the Subtext listeners. So if you want to get that, subscribe on that. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked on Mavs. Peace out. Boom!